very much for coming today. My name's Meg. I'm from Brightwave, and I'm head of products in our division where we look after learning systems in particular. And so that's what I'm going to talk about a bit today. So today we're talking about next generation learning and how technology is really changing the game for how we learn at work, and then how we think about learning systems. So today we're going to be looking at some trends, some current trends that are impacting organizational learning. And out of those trends, what are learners asking for? What do they want? What do they need? What are the challenges that exist for L&D departments because of those trends and what learners are asking for? And then how new innovations in technology and learning systems are helping to bridge these and provide real benefit for organizations. So hopefully that all sounds good and what you were expecting. So the first trend I want to look at is innovation and knowledge workers. So we know more than ever that knowledge is our job and that it's in the best interest of companies to actually hire people that are going to come in and innovate, bring new ways of thinking into the organization. And this is especially true for companies that thrive on innovation as a key driver of their business strategy. When we look at this quote from PepsiCo, it says, "We're seeing more and more jobs that simply didn't exist 5 years ago that are a direct result of those employees themselves driving towards learning and objectives." So knowledge workers can even impact and inform strategic role decisions in companies, especially those focused on innovation. So empowered learners, they want to enhance their own knowledge. This should be kind of the dream. This should be the dream of learning and development. Sorry, wow. That's something I didn't expect. Just take a step. Anyway, back to the exciting world of L&D. So we think this sounds like a great thing, but it does pose some challenges for how we approach the answer to that trend, how we approach learning systems. So what challenges are there? The first one to say is that the game is always changing. The static course is not really an option here, at least not wholly. These learners expect more, and just like you don't look at an encyclopedia anymore, you look at Wikipedia. You need to have something that can cope with changing and refining knowledge. And so the course can only really form one small part of that continuous learning chain. So the question becomes more, how do we create learning environments that respond to that consistent pressure of always doing the next thing without incurring additional cost, preferably? Additionally, L&D departments can't always guess what that learning might be because a lot of the times it's learner-driven or quick market changes that are kind of driving what you need to get out to learners. So it needs to be fluid, need to be focused on continual growth. Everybody knows that this is definitely true. The line between work and home, working and not working is so blurred already. Mobile devices, email on your phones, taking a quick peek at your email at 10:30 at night. We know we shouldn't do it, but we already kind of do it. So basically any time of the normal kind of day is fair game for work. So we can imagine what that means for learning. It just further puts the pressure and that squeeze on learning time. And it just means that working needs to be easily accessible, mobile. Then we have the challenge of the learners themselves. Because they're always striving and looking for the next thing, they're going to get a bit bored easily, hopefully not right now. And they know how to search for information themselves. They're used to using all sorts of technologies to find what they want to know. But there are some key questions here. Yeah, they're used to Googling and all the rest of it, but how quickly can they find what they're looking for? And most importantly, is it best practice for your organization? So if we're thinking about these different challenges, it really poses questions for a learning system, but also a lot of opportunity. So when you're putting something into practice, you want to maybe think about some of these what-ifs. So what if we could give learners a cutting-edge environment where they can take control and find content that's interesting to them, but also show them what they should do, But don't forget that you want to kind of anticipate what they might want to do next. Show them what they have to do, but then also ask them what they've done. See what external and internal learning is most useful and impactful. Use the information that those learners are providing you about what they want to know, and quickly and easily make updates. And most importantly, provide instant access kind of from anywhere at any time. So it's asking quite a lot. So looking at the next trend, again, it's one that we all know about. There are multiple careers per learner. It's organizations recognize now that people they don't come in at graduation, stay for 20, 30 years and move on. You've got people coming in and out at all various levels of the business. And building on from the previous point, oftentimes those that come in and provide the most kind of positive disruption maybe only are going to stay 2 or 3 years before they move on to their next challenge. And so while you get the benefit of that, there are some challenges there. So the first is knowledge loss, and you're thinking about succession planning and all the rest of it. You don't have people necessarily staying until retirement anymore. So not only are you going to maybe get the turnaround at early entry-level positions, but you're also going to get your most trusted experts leaving, and they could do that at any time. So your subject matter experts leave. And similarly then, onboarding is not just for new graduates. It can be for people that are coming in at senior levels of the business, people that are coming in maybe with a contribution to make from day one. You want to come in, get them, harness their experience, and make use of it as quickly as you can. And not only is that going on, but new workers need to learn quickly, and employers can benefit from how fast they can adapt to their new roles. Got a bit of competition going on here. So what if we could provide learners with a specific space to get up to speed on their new role, preferably with a community focus, so that they have that nice onboarding feel, can kind of get used to who else is in their role, in their organization, and harness existing knowledge from experts at all levels of the business. So this is our opportunity to take those 2 or 3 years that we've had with those really kind of great senior people with those great ideas, and make sure that we get the knowledge that they have and build on your own IP, really, and actually use that knowledge to help train new staff. And then how can we should be motivating and engaging existing employees to share their own expertise at all levels of the business. Because what we might find more and more, people are working in different regions, different offices, and you might find that information exists, but it's siloed and people aren't talking to each other and sharing what they know best. And we should be creating a space to share best practice and coach people in those new roles, because we can't forget about that. We can't just let them out there and on their own. Maybe they see a little face of a couple of people they recognize, and that's good enough. So the next trend I want to look at or to mention is this concept of just-in-time learning. And everyone has more to do faster. There's a myriad of self-help books about how to organize your to-do lists, trying to get people to understand that there's absolutely no way that they can hold everything in their heads that they have to do anymore, and only look at what's most important. So there's less emphasis now on knowing the answers to everything, and that the smartest person is kind of morphed into who can find the answer the fastest. So learners need bite-sized learning that's search-enabled, because if they have a question that they can't answer, they want to be able to dip into their learning system, find it quickly. They don't want to have to go through a big course, find the 15th screen and go, yeah, that's the thing. They want to just search for it quickly, find the answer, dip in, dip out again, and get on with their workday. So again, just strengthening the fact that mobile and instant access is vital in this case. So this is obviously a challenge, and it's one to kind of talk about head on. I mentioned it briefly earlier. I know what I need. I can just find it myself. I'll Google it. So what does Googling miss out on? Obviously, the first thing to say is that you can't frame that learning within the larger organization's objectives and your best practice. You can't find it quickly. I know that people are better at being able to sift through Google and finding stuff and kind of saying, oh, well, that one's a bit rubbish, that one's really good. But that takes time, and that's your guys' time that they're using to try and find those answers. And they're missing the coach, that person that can mentor and motivate as they're finding what they're looking for, putting that knowledge into practice. They're missing that feedback loop saying, yeah, that's a great piece of content, or have you thought about this? Maybe look in this direction. So what is the role of L&D in this type of learning? It's still important to focus the learning towards objectives, as I mentioned. And how can this still be done by enabling the learner to follow their own path? Because we know we want to keep them motivated, encouraged, but we want to help provide them with a framework. So it seems that the best possible combination is likely to be to enable the learners to use the skills that they know in the kind of method that they know and trust, because they're already doing it outside of work anyway, searching, finding, taking control of their own learning, but just giving them a framework for progression, for focus, as well as ensuring they have quick and easy access to the resources that already exist within your organization. L&D teams can provide that competency framework, goal-based, and ensure that people are focused, but as well as rewarded for what they do for your organization. But it's kind of all focused around the way that your learners already prefer to learn. So there's new opportunities for the L&D as the framework owners and the curators of that content going forward, and thinking about embedding more one-to-one feedback and coaching within the learning system itself. So what if we could create a kind of a Google atmosphere with bite-sized, just-in-time learning that achieves larger business objectives and give learners that additional focus and attention with one-on-one coaching, feedback, and framed by their own role-based objectives. And importantly, that encapsulate both formal and informal learning. So that's a lot of challenges. The good news is that learners are more attuned to technology than ever before. The emerging workforce almost don't know how to cope without it at this stage, and everybody's getting a lot more connected than they ever used to be. Because of some of this and the prevalence of social systems, learners are much more aware of the boundaries and etiquette of online social, and this has changed quite a lot in the last 2 or 3 years, and so therefore, more organizations are starting to adopt that it should form part of their learning strategies. There's also new learning technologies that are kind of paving the way for letting us kind of look in a more blended approach between formal and informal learning. These are just an examples of a couple. Tin Can API, which lets you track informal learning and actually keep a record of it and use those stats. And also Mozilla Open Badges, which helps give people recognition. And so these are new technologies in the last kind of year to 18 months that are really making an impact already. Just out of point, we've got some blogs that have been written by some of our experts on these subjects. So if you're interested, just hop on our website and take a look. So if we mix together those kind of advances in technology and the attitude of knowledge workers and the competitive nature of learning, we've got a really great recipe here, and a great opportunity to maximize these and kind of create a real impact. And so this needs the next question. If we put all of this together, promote meaningful connections, provide instant access, capture learning from individuals, not just giving them what they need to know, enable companies to swiftly onboard people, all in an org-led framework, not forgetting that that's important because we need to be able to kind of qualify that informal learning and what they're doing and how it impacts their goals and objectives. And most importantly, motivate these learners to use their own time to better their opportunities within your organization. So how do we choose a total learning system that kind of helps all of this take place, ensuring it kind of touch on all of these and continue to adapt as we adapt, because obviously this is what we're talking about now. It might change in the next kind of 6 months, year. So at Brightwave, we've been thinking about this a lot. And how can a total learning system take us away from the LMS? You see, everybody's kind of saying the same thing today about the LMS. It's not quite cutting it. What should we be doing instead? and ultimately, to improve engagement, reduce cost, and increase that kind of quality productivity, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to end up saving the company money as a whole and keep the learners engaged. So, a little over a year ago, we introduced Tesla, which is our answer to some of these problems, that we put out there to try and help solve some of these challenges. And so I wanted to just kind of show you how we've put these questions into practice to show how certain features can help harness some of this information, harness how we learn at work and how we learn outside work. So learning must keep knowledge workers engaged. So we need to give them access not only to what we think the organization thinks they need to know, but also a wealth of additional curated resources on subjects that might be interesting or relevant to their role. So maybe they know that they have a knowledge bank that they can come back to that can contain all of the resources that are useful and kind of rubber stamped by your organization as best practice. So administrators can define the tiles and provide that framework like we were discussing for learning and help staff focus on kind of key objectives and competencies. Learners can quickly see what's new and what's changed, and key areas are defined. My learning can be a structured learning path that's then a blend of all sorts of things like e-learning courses, face-to-face sessions, informal tasks that you have to prove informal activity against, and that should all be a part of what your learning path actually is. So, how often does your learning system ask you, what have you done today? We're so used to saying, do this today, do that today, that a next generation system should also flip these questions back on the learner and accept that they may know some things that we'd quite like to know about that maybe didn't stem from the platform. The system should help capture these right at the point of need. We should allow some time for reflection on that informal learning to capture additional details and consider how you might put some of that learning into practice. We should recognize that doing is not the first thing. Well, sorry, doing is just the first thing. It's the first step. But what was actually learned from the activity and how are they using it in their day-to-day jobs to make their lives a bit easier and their roles better? People love to share online. We know that. We've recognized that there's value and efficiency in learners talking directly to each other and sharing that knowledge together, breaking down those silos like we were mentioning, and coaching each other at a peer-to-peer level, and also recognizing that experts might already exist within the organization, and those can help kind of bubble up to the top. Learners can instantly shape the learning for their fellow peers, point out external and informal resources that they might find useful, or even draw their attention to formal resources that exist in the platform that you've put there, saying, hey, this one is really great, take a look at it, this is what I found useful, these are the questions I have, things along those lines. So this just creates a more vibrant and self-sustained system because it's not just driven by you, the learners can engage and contribute, and if they can contribute as well as take in information, it's a better recipe for success. So as we mentioned, it's important that a learning system doesn't just replicate Google. It needs to have focus and learning objectives. But what we're also doing is enabling people to draw both formal and informal learning against these objectives at their own pace, using a myriad of different sources and opportunities. Opportunities, it's quite important to say they're probably already doing, but you just might not know about them, and you're not harnessing them, and it might be very difficult for them to be able to remember what they've done if they don't kind of capture it as they're doing it. We should enable coaching and motivation for the learners from their peers and line managers. So a coach should be able to go in and see what have I been doing, what have I been working on, provide that kind of real-time feedback. I know a lot of people are faced with the problem of kind of one-to-one direct report sessions that maybe happen, well, ideally weekly, but maybe monthly, maybe they slip a bit. And everybody kind of scrambles around because we're all supposed to bring this information to those reviews. What have I been doing away from what you already know about? And instead of having to kind of write it all down on a piece of paper, think, oh God, what was I doing last week? I can't even remember. You can just go back to your experiences and look at them, bring those to your meeting. And then similarly, you've got your manager looking at what you're doing as you're doing it. And so instead of, if you think about kind of progress and productivity and growth, instead of that happening in little stilts on a kind of monthly basis, that manager can come in right as they're doing something interesting and say, hey, maybe now that you've already achieved that, take it up one notch. And so just helps kind of really push ahead the people that really are motivated, as well as maybe catching the people that are struggling a bit more before you get to those reviews. And so also it's important to say, yeah, so this needs to happen anytime, anywhere, and it needs to be quick and easy. You should have mobile apps that make capturing easier. You should have ways of kind of grabbing stuff off the net and having it remember what you've looked at, and that should all just sink into your experiences quickly and easily. And as I mentioned, organizations, the biggest thing is that you can benefit from the work that these people are already doing. But at the moment, and where learning systems are really changing now, is that you can start to really get an appreciation for what those knowledge workers are doing. And it is still early days for this in terms of recording it on a learning system. But you can start harnessing that information. You can use it for succession planning. You can use it to kind of maybe build future learning plans once you really recognize what the kind of full spectrum of learning is for these workers. Other learners benefit. You get to keep the learning for future onboarding, and you get the data, as I mentioned, to show work patterns and informal learning activity. And so ultimately what we're aiming to do is quite simple: faster learning, smarter learning, and stronger performance. So I want to thank you for your time today. And we are just right there at Brightwave. And we're all on hand to answer any questions that you might have. So please do come over and talk to me or any of the rest of us there. Thank you very much.